how the job applicant perspective addresses the core problem of online platforms, the unique value proposition of refusing to sell matches. Hi, my name is Sarah Trumbull. I'm the founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective, the first anonymous user reviews for job ads across the U.S. It's a level of go-to-market awareness for the future of HR tech, as I see it. Yeah, we can't fly, we can't invest in one-winged airplanes anymore. The way I see it, we had a two-winged airplane when hiring went online. We broke off a wing, started investing in one-winged airplanes, thinking, and then got upset that they stopped working as well and started yelling at the passengers who had no choice but to ride on the airplanes that we ourselves told them they had to ride on because they had no other choice. Like, super weird. And we should start, instead of, yelling at the passengers, start requiring the vendors to build two-winged airplanes again, or the first two-winged airplanes since hiring went online. You can't create a scenario where job seekers have to be customers in the market, but they can be users in the market. That's the stick. All right, let's start from the beginning. Online hiring platforms promise a simple service, better matches between employers and job seekers. But this promise hides a deeper design decision, one that shapes the psychology, behavior, and structure of the entire labor market. Most hiring platforms don't just facilitate connections, they sell matches. Really, hiring funnels in a two-sided market, seriously. And once matches become the product, a predictable chain reaction begins. Participants start to prove their value, but to the intermediary, not just the customer. This isn't accidental, it's structural. When a vendor sells matches, they must demonstrate that they can identify the best candidate, but the best is inherently subjective. So platforms reach for signals that appear objective: credentials, titles, prestige, or pedigree. The market reorganizes itself around those signals. And here's where the flip happens. The vendor stops prioritizing the experience of the person they need to attract and starts prioritizing the experience of the person they need to build. That's the moment a coordination market becomes an identity market. Not gradually, not accidentally, and necessarily. The job applicant perspective was built around refusing the flip. Instead of selling trusted matches, TJAP sells something else entirely: a trusted environment. Who this is for? Job seekers who know the market feels like performance but cannot name exactly why and want the structural explanation, not just validation. Employers who sense their hiring pipeline is producing noise instead of talent and suspect the platforms they're paying might be part of the problem. Yeah, you're investing in one-winged airplanes. That's the problem. Investors and policymakers who want to understand why trust infrastructure produces more durable market value than match optimization and what that means for platform designs at scale. Yeah. Platform designers who want to build something that gets harder to game as it grows rather than easier. Most hiring platforms sell trust in the process and profit from the gap between employment, like a DoorDash driver profits from the distance they drive. TJAP sells the environment, and profit comes from the quality of what that environment produces, like a grocery store that wins when the customers find what they came for. Legit, though. Legit. You don't have to drive anywhere to get to the internet. You might as well just sell the environment instead of the process, Sell the environment, profit from the solution. Sell the process, profit from dragging it out. These are opposite structures and everything flows from the difference. The hidden product of hiring platforms are not neutral spaces. They shape market behavior based on what they choose to sell. When a hiring platform sells matches, it must constantly demonstrate that it can identify the best candidate for the role. But determining the best candidate is inherently subjective. Platforms therefore rely on signals that appear objective. These signals usually take the form of identity markers: prestigious employers, elite universities, job titles, years of experience, credentials, and certifications. These signals become the currency of the market. Job seekers learn quickly that success depends on signaling identity and status as effectively as possible. Employers, in turn, learn to evaluate candidates through these same signals. Over time, the platform stops functioning primarily as a coordination system and begins functioning as something else, an identity market. When markets become identity markets. In identity markets, participants are not finding each other. They are being assessed by an intermediary to be the types of people worth finding or worth finding someone for. It's proximity, not value. For job seekers, this creates a constant state of identity theater, performing confidence despite the unease, lack of safety in a survival market, performing nonchalance when isolation and grief and worry are present, extra credentials gathering and signaling to the platform and employers simultaneously. For employers, hiring decisions begin to reinforce organizational status. We are the right type of location. Selecting candidates with prestigious credentials signals importance and discernment in order to keep pace with being the status they wish to be. The platform itself is incentivized to reinforce these dynamics because identity signals are easy to quantify and easy to sell. But this system has consequences. Participants begin to internalize outcomes as reflections of their personal value rather than reflections of structural friction. Ghosting, rejection, silence. Experienced not as coordination failures, but as identity judgments. Yeah. The intermediary inserted itself as an arbiter of human value. That's not a bug. That's the product. I'll say it again. Sell the environment, profit from the solution. Sell the match, profit from dragging it out. The incentive isn't to solve it, it's to plausibly offload responsibility for not solving it, you know? Oh, and it's really interesting to me when you think about it, because you actually have to drive to a grocery store. You don't actually, if the grocery store is the job market anymore, you can just be there online. The fact that they're selling a process when you don't have to go anywhere to get there, in and of itself. Hiring funnel in and of itself is marketing the scam. When people are lost in category error, they really, honest to God, say things in public marketing they should not. Econ 101, you really shouldn't be saying those things. The ATS industry is really going to regret most of their marketing campaigns by the end of this. I'm very certain. And one-click apply, what would you market? Extraction of free labor. Market a Jevons paradox, as if that's not just a class action settlement waiting to happen. It's weird to me. The vendor flip. This transformation follows a predictable pattern. It happens in two-sided markets where a vendor serves two distinct groups simultaneously, a two-winged airplane, an airplane with two wings. When vendors make a specific choice about whose problems to prioritize, are they prioritizing the passengers on the airplane or the people buying the tickets? That's the question. In coordination markets, vendors prioritize the experience of the non-paying user because they're prioritizing the passengers on the airplane. Disney does not just sell to parents, it obsesses over children's experience because that experience is the product that parents purchased. Flower vendors aren't concerned so much with the ease of a person to buy the flowers. They're concerned with the experience of the person receiving the flowers. The quality of the non-paying user's experience is load-bearing. It's the mechanism through which value is created for everyone. In identity markets, vendors flip that priority. They optimize for the paying customer. They're not concerned if the girlfriend received the flowers, only if it was really easy and nice to order flowers. They flip the experience of the paying customer, and the non-paying users becomes an input to utilize for profit rather than a constituency whose needs they should meet. This person is unrelated to them. It's like a prop to sell things to these people, not something they're trying to connect with those. Here's the diagnostic. You don't filter. You don't profit from filtering what's valuable. You filter what it profits you to devalue. You don't filter out candidates because they're valuable. You filter it because it profits you to devalue them. The ATS industry, really. If candidates were a stakeholder, there would be user reviews. If candidates were a product that they were efficiently delivering, there would be user reviews to justify that they've delivered them efficiently. The very act of there being no user reviews means that candidates generate billions for the talent industry. They generate the feeling of exclusivity for employers because, let's be real, top 5% of candidates, this is not about efficiency, it's about exclusivity. They deliver a feeling of exclusivity to employers, billions in revenue to the ATS industry because the industry doesn't exist without candidates there. They don't exist, and therefore, Candidates are the unpaid users, unpaid workforce in that. All the revenues in the last 25 years belong to the workforce. And the SBA should be pretty upset about it too, because instigating a Nash's non-converging equilibrium in the labor market meant their people would not have been able to hire and raise wages. As filtering in a matching market is, you can't profit from filtering in a matching market. Filtering is the opposite of matching. It's not matching as a value add. Matching is matching. Filtering is not matching on purpose as value add. Filtering can be instrumental, but it cannot be the profit driver. Red pill dating, so when you don't filter what's valuable, you profit from filtering what it profits you to devalue. When filtering, the non-paying user becomes the product that you buy, the ATS industry. When exclusion itself signals value to the paying customer, the market has flipped. This is not a matching market. It's an identity market. It is no longer coordinating, it is extracting. The pattern appears wherever you look for it. Red pill dating coaches do not sell men relationships. They sell superior identity position relative to women. The devaluation of women is not a side effect. It is the product. It is the product. Luxury vendors don't just sell bags. They sell the identity of being the type of person who owns one. The exclusion of those who cannot afford it is not incidental. It is structural. That's the point of buying that bag. That's why you do it. Online hiring platforms follow the same logic. When talent vendors began optimizing for employer user experience rather than market outcomes, job seeker experience stopped being load-bearing. Filtering them, ranking them, credentialing them, making them perform became the mechanism through which value was delivered to the paying customer. An unpaid workforce, very impressive how many things they say out loud they really shouldn't. Two sides. The market stopped clearing because that's never the point. When you buy a marketing funnel, you're admitting to buying the extraction of free labor from the workforce. When you build a marketing funnel, you're admitting to it. You're admitting to an engagement trap. You're admitting to rent-seeking employers by ransom-seeking the workforce. That's what a hiring funnel is. That's all it is, every time. Two-sided market is a two-sided market. And online hiring is just Uber taxes with no user reviews. That's what it is. A different design choice. The outcome is not inevitable, but reversing it requires more than good intentions. It does. It requires refusing the flip structurally. That's why I'm so careful. If you've watched my other videos or read the other 7 descriptions here, it's on purpose because you have to be very careful, especially in the modern age, especially with how quickly things flip. It requires refusing not as a value statement, but as an architectural decision made at the foundation before the incentives have a chance to push the other direction, because they will. I think there is a way to do process without having it flip into an identity market, but you would have to be very careful and very watchful, and that's a lot of effort, and I would rather design it where you don't have to have that much effort, but you can still have not that. Careful design means you solve the problem before so you don't have to constantly maintain the lack of, you can just not have it. Platform that sells trust in the environment rather than trust in the process cannot profit from the dysfunction. You can't. If I sell a grocery store, I can't profit from offering you bad fruit. I have to make sure that the fruit on the table is decent. It has no incentive to extend unemployment, amplify anxiety, or make identity signals the currency of participation. I'm not trying to get in the way between job seekers and employers. Previously, job seekers had to perform for employers. Since hiring went online, job seekers have to perform for an ever-increasing slew of folks before they perform for employers. And that includes sub-recruiters, recruiters, any algorithms they have, the ATS system that maybe the people use, and then maybe they'll get a chance to perform for employers. Maybe. They have to perform for all these extra people. That's what's happening, and nobody knows who kicked them out. That's the process here. A platform that sells trust, they have an incentive to extend it. This doesn't. I get out of the way. Efficient hiring solutions. They are the only efficient matches, and community engagement are not goals. When you sell a trustworthy environment, they are the only logical byproducts of a genuinely trustworthy environment. The vendor flip always begins with a product decision,
Reversing it begins there too. Different fields, different research converge on the same conclusion. Trust is the core infrastructure of a functional market, and protecting vulnerable signals is central to maintaining it. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Truth does not come from power. Truth comes from vulnerability. You don't try to feel what the grass feels by putting your shoes on. You take them off. Truth comes from vulnerability, not power. When powerful people are being truthful, it's because they're being vulnerable. They're being open. When vulnerable people are being dishonest, it's because they're protecting something. They're protecting some sense of something from danger. Protection, sense of protection. It's not where truth comes from. You have to protect the vulnerable signals. A two-sided market that does not ferociously guard the experience of their non-paying end user isn't delivering coordination. They're delivering identity and comfort. That's what it is. Ferociously protect the user experience. Their user experience is the load-bearing wall. Protect the vulnerable signals. You don't exclude the people's insight that are closest to the signal. That's how systems fail every time. I think it's fascinating for me because in the end, for this online hiring market, both the mechanism of the engagement trap, as well as the reason employers can't see it, and the reason it's causing market collapse and civic society collapse is the exact same thing. Because the one thing they cannot do is listen to job seekers. Talent vendors can't admit what they've done, so they won't admit to it. They will discourage against it. Employers can't do it because it impacts their sense of their identity, so they can't see it. Cognitively, they can't see it. The lack of listening to job seekers is how you keep paying for one-winged airplanes while vendors blame the passengers for being too heavy. We can't fly our airplanes because the passengers are too heavy. It's not that they have one wing. And employers can't listen to passengers that it's really just that the airplanes have one wing, because then they would have to it's the same thing. The problem is the same thing. You can't build a system that it's a Hasberg jaw. You have a cognitive blind spot, and that blind spot is I tend to think that all hierarchies fall to, they're a closed mental system. It's a cognitive blind spot actively chosen as a value add. It's a decision to see myself as valuable because of the things I don't listen to. And we don't have overlapping cognitive blind spots here. We have a united cognitive blind spot because we've all agreed that not listening to X group of people is the thing to do. I do Ostrom style, overlapping cognitive blind spots, because we all have them. Overlapping blind spots is better. More adaptable in the internet age, I like information is power. I don't want to not know things. I just want to discern what's the right thing to know, I think that makes sense. Anyway, polycentric governance from Eleanor Ostrom. Anyway, I like her. Samesies, me and her. Not really that. Obviously, she's a different person, but philosophically, that's my brand, Sinis, Kidder, and Conquer on the future crowd work, signal integrity from a guy named McKay, a person named McKay, and then my own watch on SSR and OSF and Zenodo. Each repository contains most aspects of the architectural systems theory work I've done in labor market economics. The goal is vetting, discussion, and learning. I move outside of institutions. Obviously, I'm an outsider. So I put stuff in a lot of places, and I say stuff because partly I want to hear back, because I think I'm right about 80 to 9%, but there's always room for growth. I think of myself as an atlas, not a roadmap, not a street map. So I'm interested to hear more. Building systems where you have overlapping cognitive blind spots and you can filter information carefully, because I think I source my safety in learning, not in knowing, because I think in the age of misinformation, it is error and folly to work in certainty. And it is error and folly to believe that you're the type of person that misinformation won't work on. Yeah, it will. So the goal isn't to be right all the time. It's to always have your compass pointed back towards truth, to recognize when you've been wrong and be able to get back to being towards the North Star of reality. I like reality. That's my jam. Okay. The environment, TJAP is the environment, not the process. The job applicant perspective was built around structural refusing to sell matches and selling the environment itself instead. Coordination markets attract through value. Identity markets attract through need. I mean, yeah, the grocery store attracts your value. But identity markets, red pill industry, that attracts your need. Selling matches, making employment the only reason to participate is itself an extractive mechanism. It has a workforce that is always present from desperation, not choice, captive, not willing, which means all of the market rules flop off. You cannot have a market like that because there's no ability to exit the market because you don't like the vendor. As soon as you take away one side of the market's ability to walk away from that vendor to have another choice that doesn't offer the same product, it's not working. TJAP competes for job seeker trust instead. We are not selling matches. Also, not just for employers, because we're not trying to sell employers an engagement trap. We're not selling matches to job seekers because we're not trying to sell job seekers an engagement trap either. We're trying to sell them value, trust, community. If the environment offers genuine value, regardless of whether a match exists today, participation is a choice, not a necessity. And that changes everything about what the platform has to become. We do not build revenue around the paying customers' experience on purpose. That's exactly how identity markets are born. Building revenue around the non-paying customer's experience is how coordination markets achieve efficiency. Think of us as the De Beers of the online hiring market. We're desperately interested in the job seeker user experience so that we can build a great coordination market. Job seeker user experience is not a feature. It is the load-bearing infrastructure for efficient hiring solutions, for efficient labor market, and for a labor market period. The first two-winged airplane in a while. I think it's great. We got to get info, right? It's load-bearing infrastructure. That's the refusal. Everything else follows from it. The market we choose to build. Markets are not neutral. They are shaped by what vendors choose to sell and whose experience they choose to make load-bearing. I'm not against employers. I'm for them. But the market is not about employers. We meet job seeker needs in order to meet employers' needs. Else, why are we in the market? It's not a coordination market. If employers aren't purchasing job seeker user experience, like primarily, they've not paid. It's a balance. You have to have both. And job seekers are 95% of the market. Employers like 5% of it. So, legit, like, what are they going to do? Tell job seekers not to come to a place that respects them? They'll come to us. If it's an attention market, then bring value to job seekers. They don't have to it's not required, But also they will like it because a lot of small businesses are dying. So they're not neutral. They're shaped by what vendors choose to sell, and people make money. I like to make money. I don't like to offload responsibility for having destroyed it. And that's all that's happening now. Markets not new. They shape by what vendors choose to sell and whose experience they choose to make load-bearing. When platforms sell matches, hiring becomes an identity contest. When platforms sell trust in the environment, hiring becomes coordination again. This difference ripples through everything in how candidates see themselves, how employers evaluate talent, how the market signals what it actually values. 1 + 1 is 2. 1 + 1 is 2. So it's a two-sided market. User reviews. All online platforms profit from engagement, not solutions. And all users profit from solutions, not engagement, especially people who are desperate to find work. It was always the vendors. Every last time it was the vendors. Everybody knows. It's not hiding anything. The only people who profited from endless engagement, it wasn't the workforce. It was obviously the vendors. That was the problem the entire time. Clearly. Cui bono. It's not confusing. It's only confusing how many more trillions you want to waste, throw into the money pot, the fire of these talent vendors that are building one-winged airplanes, I'm building a two-winged airplane. I built it, but it's only MVP. So platforms sell matches, hiring becomes an identity contest. When platforms sell trust in the environment, hiring becomes coordination again. The difference ripples through everything. How candidates see themselves, how employers evaluate talent, how the market signals what it actually values. Stable civic society. It is a survival market. We turned it into a planned obsolescence for human survival market, Squid Game style. It's actually not cool. We shouldn't do that anymore. The labor market doesn't need better identity filters. It needs better trust infrastructure. Yeah. We strip trust infrastructure. It's fascinating to me. The people who strip the trust infrastructure and the people who built one-winged airplanes are literally blaming the passengers of the one-winged airplanes that are starving because there's only those airplanes
for the fact that the airplanes don't fly. What are we talking about? Build the environment. The matches make themselves. Yeah. Anyway, I'm passionate about it, but it's a really touchy subject. I know it is for everyone, but also, yeah, I'm in 1 and 1 is 2, and I'm right. So it sucks because I know it's related to people's identity, and I know it's going to be identity collapse for folks. But unfortunately, it needs to be done because obviously looking at civic society and having 25 years of an acre left lemon market, a planned obsolescence for human survival market, like it's one of the most impressive to me principal agent errors, as far as I can tell. And it needs to stop. It just needs to stop. It's not about there not being like hope on the other end. It's about the fact that like on the other end, like the first principles again, there's real math again. And we're doing really exciting things. And yes, of course, accountability is happening. Of course it is, because there's one of the most impressive stochastic economic and psychological violence at scale. Yes, but also there's an opportunity to make money again, to make value again, to bring value to society, not just keep offloading responsibility for having destroyed it. Like we can make money. Let's make money again. It's great. Anyway, I might write some more about these coordination versus identity markets because I think that's migration. I'm not entirely sure. But yeah, I might write some more about that. But anyway, I wanted to just kind of fully cement this is part of the series about not just what is wrong, but what I'm doing instead and why I'm doing it instead, like the vision for the future. And this kind of ends out that series and kind of moves into a discussion on coordination versus identity markets, which I might do more of on Substack or maybe just do SSRN. I'm not entirely sure. We'll see. But either way, be sane, be safe out there, and please be kind to each other. We don't have to have money to have kindness in each other. We could just have each other. So the world's crazy. It doesn't need cruelty. It needs care, stewardship, consideration, repair. It's good stuff. Accountability is not the end of the world. It's the beginning of the new. So it's good. Anyway, like I said, be safe, be sane. Cheers.